meeting for May 11th, 2021. And at this point, I'm going to ask us all to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you so much. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice
and justice for all.
for all.
For all. Amen.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. Okay. So the first thing is I'm going to do roll call. Councilor Waldman.
Here.
Councilor Murray.
Here.
Councilor Burkett.
Here.
Councilor Lucero.
Here.
Councilor Knight.
Here.
Councilor Parker.
Here.
Thank you very much. We next move on to the approval of the agenda. There will be because it was such a long one, we decided to remove a couple items. No, actually, we are going to remove item 4, item 3, and item 4. They will be back next meeting. But with those amendments, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, let's put our hands up, please. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I see everybody. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on. The first item is a presentation from the Corrales Interior Drain Committee. And I think they have a presentation that you got in your packets. I don't know whether it's going to be shared with you. Aaron?
Yes, Madam Mayor. And Doug, you should be able to share your screen now, and you can get started whenever you're ready.
Very good. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
before we get into this, I would like to ask you to go back to the agenda. I was just talking to Jill on the phone. She just called
Yes.
just now, and they have a technical issue. The bond rates things are not going to change, but there's a technical issue that they've got to resolve. So they're asking to be pulled off the agenda tonight.
I already did that.
Okay.
Ron.
Thank you. I was on the phone with her. Thank you.
That's okay. Yes, we removed items 3 and 4 and
Thank
they
you.
will come back. You're very
Good job.
welcome. Okay,
All right.
thank you. So back to the Interior Drain Committee, and Doug, if you want to tell everybody a little bit about your commission before you get in there, I'd appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
will totally do all that, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Greetings and good evening, Mayor and council people and the heads of the departments. Thanks for giving the Corrales Interior Drain Committee a chance to tell about what we are and what we've been up to. I'll get right to your point, Mayor, but it's in my presentation.
Okay.
And you're not going to mess me up by making me jump the gun.
No, I'm not.
Okay. So I want to introduce the members of my committee. I'm not sure if they're here right now or not, but there's Sarah Gerhardt, John Perea, Rick Toller. We have a couple of members that are not official committee members that help us a lot, and that is Claudia Miller and Shai Toller and Jeff Radford. So I'm Douglas Finley. I'm a lifelong resident of Corrales. I was lucky to be born the son of James Finley, the renowned professor of biology from the University of New Mexico and one of the founders of the Corrales Bosque Preserve. And it is because of my mom and dad that I grew up with a great love of nature. And with that connection, I came up with a dream to do something beautiful about the Corrales Interior Drain. My idea partially came out of something I read about the elevated train that ran through Manhattan, which was abandoned and bound to be demolished. And a couple of ordinary people, one of them a lot like me, had an idea to save the elevated train track and make it into a multi-use park. And so Sarah created this slideshow to help me with the presentation, and it contains answers. A lot of the answers I think that you're going to have about this. And if, in order to not take too much time up, I'd like to answer the questions at the end of the presentation, if you don't mind. So what we're talking about here is, now I'll jump the gun. We were appointed last year as a committee by the village government to, I'm gonna skip a page to get right to that. Our mission is to identify and help to implement ways in which the interior drain and its right of way may be improved for safe, enjoyable, and essential public use while maintaining tranquility for adjacent residents. Now I'm gonna go back. So what we're talking about is the Corrales interior drain was a canal that was cut into the earth across the portion of Corrales, starting at where Val Verde Road is and coming out below Meadowlark Lane and connecting with the Clear Ditch, which in turn drains into the river. This canal was dug down to the water table, and its purpose was to drain the water level in the surrounding areas to make the property more irrigable and therefore farming wise. As it happens, it also turned it into a great place to build houses. So this property consists of a little more than 25 acres of land running through the middle of Corrales. It's almost 2 miles long and it's 120 feet wide. This property is owned and controlled by the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. They have license access agreements with a lot of people that allows them to put crossings through the canal across there to connect properties from one side of the canal to the other so people can make it to their property and go home. They also granted very limited lateral access along their property to allow some people who didn't have legitimate access to their property use of the drain area to get to their houses. So the village maintains a little bit of the roadway on the ditch banks by blading it off now and again to fix the washboard and the potholes and the sand pits and so on. The village is required to maintain it as a drainage ditch, and that job of theirs is a little bit remiss. They've not maintained portions of it for a very long time and some of it for quite a while. So we already did this page. I'm just going to point out this is a dry part of the ditch. This is the area just north of Rincon Road. As you can see on this side, there's enough room for 2 cars to drive by, and on the other side you can see a vehicle there with enough space for another car to drive by, and no water in the ditch and none to be seen in the foreseeable future, and I'll get to that. So excuse my jumping around. So here's aerial map of the entire drainage ditch. It starts on this side here at the confluence of the Clear Ditch and the drain, and ends up, I can't see because the pictures are in the way, but it lands up at just south of Val Verde East. As you can see, there's a lot of property that are abutting this drain, and there's a lot of people's houses that are abutting this drain. So there's over 100 people whose houses are on property that are about to drain. So my point is that there's a lot of people that are affected one way or the other, or not at all, by living on this drain. So what we've done, among other things, is we've gone along the ditch and identified different areas that have different characteristics and different features, and make it, instead of just one continuous drain, it is a bunch of segments that are uniquely different and have different characteristics. So we went and did a site survey along the entire ditch. This portion here, I'm not going to go through it too thoroughly, is from the section that is south of Meadowlark Lane, excuse me. So we've gone through the defining characteristics, what kind of accesses are across it or along it, some of our initial ideas, what the natural features are, the man-made features, the topography, what kind of trails there might be and what's adjacent to it and what it's being used for now. make it seeable again. So what we have below the chart is on the left is a portion of the ditch that is just south of East La Entrada. Here the water stays in the ditch usually most of the time. Sometimes in the winter it's down to mud. But in this photo it's showing that there are cattails growing in the ditch. This is a water drawing plant that can only grow in water that's 3 feet deep or less, depending on the variety. And the photo on the right side is just behind the elementary school. Quit turning blue everything. Which shows, I'm going to try to make it so you can see it better, which I can do. Which anyway, this is right behind the elementary school. On the far left side, there's a 2-lane dirt track. Then there's the actual canal itself. It looks very similar to the beginning picture that showed a dry canal. Then there's a single dirt track that's available for driving on. And then right straight in the middle of the photo, you'll see a power pole and a fence. And the space in there is the legitimate access for the houses that are beyond here. This is not on the Conservancy property. This was the legitimate access for the houses along here and further down that road. Recently, somebody is taking the dirt from the ditch bank, possibly with permission from the Conservancy and probably not, and created now a double-lane road here, which goes all the way down to East Ella Drive. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Let me see if I can make my picture small again. Okay. I'm not an expert with this mouse, I'll have you know. So Shai is a landscape architect from the University of New Mexico, and she helped us with a lot of our work here. And she did a traffic study on the drain. This is the drain here on this map from top to bottom. And she drew in red where there is traffic laterally along the ditch, which you can see is on both sides of the ditch for the most part. The orange lines signify road crossings that continue a road from one side of the ditch to the other to provide people with access to their homes. And the greenish lines are traffic that comes down and stops at the ditch, or that may cross the ditch but does not continue in a road beyond the ditch. The document on your left side is a actual license granted for somebody to put in a 48-inch culvert in the ditch to cover up with dirt and gain access to their property. This is a legitimate thing. There's a handful of these. So the map here is just a filler thing. It's a very old map from 1949 of the southern end of Corrales. So as I said, the drain was constructed in the 1930s to lower the water table. And since then, great portions of the water table have dropped below the level of the ditch. The reason for that was explained to us by the CEO of the MRGCD, is because of the dams upstream in the Rio Grande have made the river not carry silt anymore. So instead of the riverbed building up with silt, it is being scoured out. Therefore, the bottom of the river bed is dropping down, causing the water table that we're talking about, the drainage is supposed to control, to also drop down. This is probably an irreversible effect of dams upstream. So there are portions of the ditch that will no longer ever function as a drain. So we've talked extensively with the Conservancy about that issue, about the issues of the roads along the ditch. And I'm going to just jump past opportunities and talk about what the MRGCD is concerned about. Is their thing is that they're supposed to maintain this ditch as a drainage ditch. They are liable for everything that happens on that ditch. The portions of the ditch which are licensed for people to cross the ditch and drive along the ditch are not a liability for them, but every single inch and foot of traffic that happens along the ditch, which is not licensed, is a giant concern for them. They're worried that someday there'll be an accident and they're going to be liable. And I'm not sure of all the legal ramifications, but the village could also be liable for things that happen along that ditch. Yeah, so they're very concerned. There are some safety issues that make them worried about that, which I'll get into. But some of the opportunities that we've come across while talking to the various departments of the village is one that the fire department has a great desire to run a fire suppression line down the entire length of the ditch. And that is a high pressure water line that is used only for fighting fires. There would be periodic fire hydrants along the drain to help them fight fires. The Department of Public Works is working on some plan to connect the sewer to the high density neighborhoods of Mockingbird Lane, East La Entrada, and the Corrales and Priestley Road neighborhoods. So they will definitely be looking at a way to cross the drainage ditch with proper easement, as well as there is a thought going around that they might want to create an alternative route for the sewer where possible. It would eliminate problems when they have blockages they recently had, to have a redundant bypass of a great portion of the sewer system that runs along Corrales Road. And this could be run along the drainage ditch. So in talking with the MRGCD,
Yeah.
is there somebody need something? Okay, I'll continue. So the MRGCD has water rights along the entire length of this drainage ditch. And they said if we ever needed to, they would be glad to grant us access to those water rights. And they're really encouraging us. They think it's our job as a committee to find out how to provide all the people that use the ditch for access to get home, to identify and legitimize their accesses with legal licensure. I think that covers that page. So some of the ideas we've come up with are to make this a community resource. It's almost 26 acres of property in the middle of Corrales. That's highly valuable. We would like to control the vehicle traffic somewhat, and so would the Conservancy, to cut down on the dust, cut down on the danger. There's a lot of children walk along this ditch, as well as other normal people that aren't children, and horseback riders and bicyclists and joggers and so on and so forth that are going along a road that is got unregulated traffic on it that can be a serious safety feature. We want to support the infrastructure of the villages, as I said, about the fire suppression line and the sewer lines. We would like to see some trails going all the way along this thing for the people who already use it, and to encourage more people to use it. We would like to encourage and improve the wildlife habitat along this place. We would like to beautify the whole corridor in a natural way for the neighbors in the community. We would like to preserve the wildlife habitats that's there and the water features that still exist there, and try to make them work and give animals a place to hang out that like to go to those places. So for examples, we've identified 3 distinct sections of the ditch shown on the map on your left. I would start with this first site, which is the area right behind the elementary school, which is a very high traffic zone. There's 2 lanes of traffic on both sides of the canal, which is dry and deep and steep. This is where the footpath of the students is concentrated. A lot of people use this as a way to get to school without having to go along Corrales Road. A lot of people use this as a way to bypass school traffic. And a lot of people just use this as a way to drive north and south through Corrales without going on Corrales Road. It could be changed a little bit by narrowing down the extra wide dirt road that's there, and maybe making it a sinuousy path by planting some trees here and there to slow the traffic down by adding curves into it. What I envision this as, after talking with the MRGCD, they would suggest in a portion, or they might suggest, but they said it's possible that in an area like this where the canal is completely dry and is never going to be coming up again, the water level, is to put a perforated pipe in the bottom of a canal and fill it in. And doing that would provide a much greater area to do something, which is my vision, is to plant something that would resemble the Corrales Bosque Preserve using cottonwoods and other natural growth in that area. The next area is shown on that map is the area around Meadowlark Lane, which is pretty nice because it always has quite a bit of water in it. It's not really all the way functioning as a drain, it's kind of stagnant. But with help from the MRGCD, we might be able to get that flowing again. And most of the area north of Meadowlark Lane is got a lot of access going to people's houses there. Some people have complained about the speed of the traffic, and it could be controlled a little bit with some good planning. Possibly doing as what I suggested at the other site, is planting a few trees along the roadway to create a sinuousy path and slow the traffic down. This is a great place for fishing, and I'm sure the people along there realize that a lot of people like to go fishing there. The next place I'm looking at is just below East La Entrada. It's I've showed a picture of this in the beginning that has the cattails in it. This area usually has water in it, but it is not functioning as a drain. It's stagnant. The culvert at the south end of this section is occluded with mud, I suppose, and other debris, which the Conservancy would need to clean out that and the culvert south of that to get this flowing again, to provide a water that would make a good habitat. But in this section here with the way it is, it'd be easy to enlarge portions of it to make pond-like features that could have something like a footbridge going across it for little boys to fish off of. And big boys. So with the help of Shai, she drew us a detail of what a cross-section of a portion of this ditch could look like, with planting things along it, providing places for people to hang out, and pathways. As it is, this drain functions as a green corridor, and it connects the middle of the bosque with the Corrales Bosque Preserve. Many of the residents use the ditch banks for trails for running, biking, horses, and fishing, and walking to school, which brings up that safety feature again. The ditch banks have plenty of room to provide enough area for that, as well as legitimate access to people's property. As a green corridor, this can provide ecological benefits for the animals that live here in Corrales, such as the badgers and bobcats and raccoons, skunks, and squirrels. The fish in there, like the bass, carp, catfish, and minnows. The box turtles like the dry areas, but soft shell turtles, painted turtles, which aren't native, and snapping turtles live in this ditch. There's a lot of birds that benefit from this ditch. Great blue herons, mallards, green-winged teal. Kingfishers like to sit on wires that go across the ditch and prey on unsuspecting small fish. There's lots of sparrows and finches and red-tailed hawks and kestrels and roadrunners. Bighorned owls and barn owls used as a hunting ground, and hummingbirds can greatly benefit from it, along with bees and butterflies. And speaking of butterflies, this brings me to a little known fact that the indigenous people from the Santa Ana Pueblo called this place, before it was Corrales and before the swamp was drained, and probably before a lot of houses were built or anybody lived here, they call this the place of butterflies. We would like to reintroduce native plantings to encourage butterflies to use this drain as a habitat, which would encourage all the other wildlife that I mentioned before and more. This photograph here is of an actual butterfly planted area. It's like a sanctuary. There's a pathway going through here. This is in a big city that's in Canada, so you're seeing it all green and everything. This could easily be in Corrales. We could have something like this in the heart of our village. So, you know, we're thinking that using the image of a butterfly as a symbol of our intent to go along with nature and to honor the indigenous people, we'd like to carry that image throughout our project as a symbol of what we want to do. And a large part of that is creating a green belt or an ecological corridor. So, in looking to how one of these things is accomplished, we found out that Silver City had something of a similar situation. Silver City, New Mexico, that is, running through the middle of their city is a arroyo and drainage places and places where the city would drain, and a green place that went through their city that that they had never done anything with, and somebody came up with the idea of doing something with it. So they hired a planning company to help to make a plan for it. They figured out what kind of pathways and how to make natural and otherwise types of paths to connect parts of their city up together. And the planners helped them figure out the costs and per foot of different kinds of additions to the place. So we're considering that if we had a plan like that, it would take into effect the requirements of the village and the community. So our first step would be, after bringing the council so they know what we're talking about, is reaching out to the community. The first step of that we want to do is we have a questionnaire we've designed to pass out amongst the people who live directly connected to the ditch and get their input, get their fears and hopes, and try to see and include everybody's ideas in this idea of ours. I think you may have a copy of this questionnaire in your packet. So we would reach out to the adjoining properties and work with the fire department, public works, and other departments of the village that might have some interest in this area, like Parks and Recreation or the Bosque Commission, or certainly the trails groups and the equestrians. And once we get this out, we would like to bring it to the general public and go to the farmers market and have meetings, general meetings with the community at the market and at other venues. So reaching out to the committee the community, excuse me, is our next big goal. We want to hire a professional planner to help us develop a master plan for the entire ditch that can be done in phases, so it's not a big impact economically or otherwise on anything. This plan would have to address all the concerns of all the people up and down the ditch and other residents of Corrales. Of course, what we're thinking of is going to have a large biological impact, so we'd have to do a study on that to see how we might hurt or benefit the creatures that live up and down the ditch. And we would really hope and expect the village to pitch in for the initial planning of this, to hire this planner, which we estimated around $25,000. We can get a local outfit to do that. Of course, we will continue as a committee to do grant writing and fundraising and finding other ways to pay for this project and its planning. And if I missed something or whatever else you would like to know, I'm open for questions until somebody cuts me off.
Mary, you're muted.
Thank you very much, Doug. That was a beautiful presentation. Do we have questions from the counselors? Yes, Counselor Parker, and please, Counselor Parker.
Mayor Rowe, counselors, I don't have a question. I just think this is a great idea. I think the High Line in New York is one of my favorite places to go wander around. And we have this big area that cuts right through the middle or the heart of Corrales that I don't want to say it's underutilized, but it's the potential is definitely there to do something pretty special. And as everyone is starting to go out into the community more, into the boskies more dogs, more horses, more people walking, more bikes. If we could provide more areas for that to occur, maybe it would alleviate some of the conflicts that people are having in those areas. And also, I mean, the idea of connecting these, like he said, with the trails or whatnot, creating a loop within Corrales, not just above Corrales. I don't know. I think this is pretty cool. So I commend you guys for putting this together. I hope to see something pretty.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from counselors? Yes, Counselor Murray, and then
Thank
Counselor
you.
Knight.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Finley, so getting back to the MRGCD water rights, are they allowing us then to drill wells to support irrigating plants and trees that might be planted along this pathway?
Yes, that would exactly be our idea and their idea. And what I see is a series of shallow wells with solar panel pumps that are discreetly placed up and down this drainage ditch to address any irrigation issues that might arise.
Also, one other question I have for you is, if I can remember what I was going to ask. Oh, do you have an idea about the dollar figure that this is going to cost?
I have no idea. I'm sorry to say. That's going to be directly linked to what we do with it. Hopefully we can do this as ecologically as possible. And the biggest things we'd be doing, I think, would be planting trees and creating something like the Bosque Preserve, and cottonwood seedlings are very cheap, if not free. So I'm hoping it's not going to be that expensive. Sorry, I can't give you more information on that.
Do you think MRGCD would be receptive to other interior drain projects like this?
It's entirely possible. Every one of those other drainage ditches that exist in Corrales, well, not as dangerous as this one, I might say, because of the traffic. There are nonetheless issues that they've put on the side because they frankly don't probably have the money or the time to deal with them. And if we took it up, I bet they would be glad for us to do something with those other drains.
Thank you.
Counselor Knight, and then Counselor Waldman.
I was just going to say your committee did a great job and looking at all the different areas of concerns is, the traffic and address the water issue. That was my question that you already answered about how would we get water there? So my questions already answered.
Counselor Waldman. Thank you, Counselor Knight. Counselor Waldman?
Yes, thank you very much for all the work you put into this. It's a great opportunity. One question I did have was whether or not you will continue to allow north and southbound traffic along the drain, or would it just be for cross?
No, there's definitely places that if there's not some legitimate access provided, there will be a lot of people who won't have a way to get home.
Right.
So we were definitely interested in providing north-south traffic for access to people who need it to get to their property. It's an absolute imperative in this project to do that.
And one other thing you might want to consider looking into the recently last year authorized permanent funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It's money from the federal government that is specifically for this at about $900 million a year nationwide. So it would be, I think, a great opportunity to look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there are no other, you've given the council and the public a lot to think about, and we'll start moving forward with the next steps. And thank you, every member of this commission. Thank you for a great job, and we look forward to the next steps. So thank you, and we're going to move
And I
on.
think,
Can we speak as public?
thank you.
You're
He asked
very,
if we can-
very welcome. Very welcome.
He asked if we can have a public comment.
All right, I think we have had all the comments from counselors, so we're going to move on to the administrator report. Mr. Curry?
What about public comment? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, this isn't a time for public comment. I'm very sorry. This is a time for questions from counselors, and we will, I know that they are going, that's part of their next plan, is to get out with the community and get a lot of input from community members and from those people who live adjacent to the ditch. So none of
Okay,
it's going to be
I thought he said that he was going to take public comment, so.
just the counselors at this time. Thank you very much. All right, Counselor Ron Curry, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start off as usual with some good updates from Tanya on COVID.
Good morning or good afternoon, Mayor, Councilor, Administrator Curry. Yes, really good numbers. We'll start with Sandoval County. Sandoval County is now at 70.2% with first vaccine in, and of all people eligible over 16. And we're at 56.8% of second vaccine given. So yay. The state has 62.5 first vaccine in and is at 49.8 for second, or waiting, or fully vaccinated. So that's really, really good news. This week in Corrales alone, we'll be doing over 320 shots, Pfizer and J&J mixed. So that's wonderful. We're getting really good response to the afternoon and the weekend clinics. So a little bit more work for some of us on the staff, less work for others, but hey, we're getting it done. The state should open, we're hoping will open up vaccine to 12 to 15-year-olds within this week. Right now, we're still waiting. I don't know if the CDC signed it when I was vaccinating, waiting for the CDC to approve the FDA's recommendation. Once that's approved, the state MAT team, medical advisory team, will look at it, see if they concur. If that happens, it will be moved down to the state. In Corrales alone, we already have 78 people in that age range, 12 to 15 signed up. Sandoval County, it's about 1,000. So I'm already as soon as the FDA approved it, my phone started blowing up. So we will be doing some youth clinics. Of course, we'll let adults come too, but we'll gear them towards the youth clinics as well. Our numbers are holding really good. Corrales, I think it's 9 days now with no new cases of COVID. So that's a big thank you. Working hard, and that's a COVID update. I'll be happy to stand for questions. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, you're muted still.
Tonight. Any questions for Commander Latin, or just big thank you? She's done a marvelous job for us. Yes, thank you. Very glad we don't have any more COVID cases here for the last 9 days.
Yep.
All right.
The whole team. Thank you, guys.
Back to you, Administrator Curry.
And we've got a shot clinic going on Thursday. I'd like to turn it over to Aaron now to talk about some mapping issues with 9/11.
Thank you, Ron. Madam Mayor, councilors, I'll give some background about how this came about. The mayor and I were able to meet with the Department of Broadband yesterday and discuss some of the issues that the villages faces, especially when it comes to things like telecommunication and high-speed internet access. We had a really great discussion with them, and they seemed extremely engaged and willing to help the village address some of its concerns. They mentioned that there's a lot of money coming from the legislature and the state to address broadband issues. It's a little unclear how the village itself can utilize these funds when considering the anti-donation clause, because it can apply to these funds. They're not federal funds per se that, you know, the federal government can kind of just give money to whomever they desire without any sort of issues. Since New Mexico has this anti-donation clause, it can make some of these things a little sticky. But The way that other municipalities in other areas, as well as New Mexico, have utilized funds as these is to obtain the funds, build the infrastructure themselves, and then lease out the infrastructure to ISPs. That's something the village will have to think about as we move forward. Their team is going to do some research for us and determine what sort of infrastructure is already present and potentially get us in touch directly with ISPs so that we can sort of be able to lobby with them a bit. The biggest challenge we face is that, we don't necessarily have the clout to just call up Comcast and make demands. So, with the Department of Broadband kind of being able to do that on our behalf is really helpful. But the other discussion, which Ron is going to have me talk about right now, is, it just so happens that Gar Clark, who is a member of this team that's going to work for us, did a lot of the E911 mapping for us back in the day. And he was mentioning to us that there's quite a bit of potential funding sources available to us now to continue kind of our E911 mapping projects. I know both chiefs and Lori are probably pretty excited that we can continue to address some of those addressing an E911 concerns. So it was quite a long time ago that we were able to do all that and receive funds for those. So this could be a really good opportunity for us to get back up into date, improve our technology resources available and do a lot more of the actual physical mapping related to our E911 needs. So we're going to follow up with them hopefully soon and get some more information, but we think it's a pretty great program that we can tap into, and I can stand for any questions.
Any counselors have a question for, yes, Counselor Murray, and then
Thank
Counselor
you.
Waldman.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Say, do you know how much more of the village needs to be mapped out? And what exactly is e-mapping? Are you looking at sending emails out for 911 type messages and so forth?
So I don't have that number off the top. Lori might have something a bit more concrete, or one of the chiefs might have something more concrete. This is the actual mapping. So for instance, I'll just give an example where a lot of agencies such as Albuquerque Ambulance or some of the other surrounding agencies that assist us, our E911 mapping isn't quite up to snuff for some of our roads. And so, you'll send an address and suddenly even our fire department can't find it at times. And it's only because we have the history that we're able to find it. And so this is more related, not necessarily to sending a message to someone, but just the actual physical location and how emergency services can access those locations and that sort of thing.
Yes, Counselor Waldman.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Going back to your first part of your presentation on the broadband, will you be doing a survey of those residents in Corrales who do not have access to broadband at this point? I've run into several instances where contacting Comcast or Xfinity or CenturyLink, it would cost anywhere from $33,000 to $75,000 to hook up. I think there's opportunity there. And the second part of the question is, when you're looking with GAR at the broadband coverage, are you only talking about fiber, or are you also talking about the possibility of satellite, Starlink, and some of the others?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Waldman. The answer to your first question is, as of this point, we as the village won't be doing much of the surveying. This team is doing quite a bit for us. It was actually extremely refreshing to have a meeting with someone where they said, we'll take on some of the responsibility and we'll get back to you, rather than just saying, oh, sure, here's all these things you can do and, spend all these resources and time doing so. So it was extremely refreshing in that respect. But, I think what they're going to do, and it's related to your second question as well, is that they're looking both at who is covered, who is not, because they have access to that sort of data that we just don't. And again, if you ask Comcast, they'll probably tell you, oh sure, we cover the whole village, but we obviously know of instances where that's just not the case. So I think this team is doing quite a bit of that. It's not just for fiber, and they did mention, not only bringing large ISPs to the table, but bringing smaller ISPs even satellite ones that might be able to address some of our problems without having to do a huge infrastructure change, like laying fiber for every single resident in the village, which, you know, just wouldn't be a feasible project at this point.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of money coming from the federal government under for the COVID relief packages for broadband, as well as money from the state. So it'd be nice to be able to funnel that into the village somehow. So great, thank you.
Great. Aaron, any other questions from counselors for Aaron on this part? If not, we'll go back to Administrator Curry. Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor. Next thing I wanted to bring up is that I had the opportunity to meet with Roadrunner Waste Services this week, and they came and visited me in the office, and they brought a check for a large sum of money that went to the village for their franchise fee. And so we were very appreciative of that and for the services they provide. One of the part of our discussion was they've been on contract with the village way back until the early 2000s, and their contract has been updated in 2009 and 2018. And one of the provisions in their contract states that Roadrunner Waste Services retains the exclusive right to provide roll-off boxes, debris removal, and compactors within the village. Such services not covered under shall be subject to private franchise agreement between Roadrunner Waste Services and the individual concerned requesting such services, and shall be first approved by the village. So begs some questions there, but as an example, the village will honor that certainly, and we're doing it right now as we get ready to go through the remodel of the police offices, where there's a now Roadrunner has put a waste service drop-off in there, and the one that's in there right now will be removed. But I'm going to examine this a little further to see if and how it may pertain to private residents. But the village is obligated by this contract to use drop-off, roll-offs with Roadrunner, and they do, when they do sell those to a resident or to the village for their services, the village gets a 5% of the fee that's charged on it. So the check that they brought to the village the other day was for $50,000. So it's important that we try to abide by this contract. So I wanted to bring that the attention to the folks, and also let you know that we'll be looking into it further. Next thing I wanted to bring up was a thank you to Councilor Woolman and Councilor Knight and also for Michael Chavez and for Steve Grohlman for their work that they did in meeting with and doing some really good planning and communication with the folks up on Sagebrush. So I wanted to say thank you to the councilors and to Michael and Steve for their work. We had a productive meeting that was held in the council chambers, and we were able to accommodate, I think we had about less than 20 folks in there, but it was a very productive meeting that had a lot of exchanges going on for a little over an hour. So thank you guys for doing that. And I think we're off to I wouldn't say a quick start on that particular trail, but we're off the starting blocks. So that's a good thing.
Hey, after 20 years, everything is relative, right?
Yeah.
So thank you, folks. The last thing that I'll ask Aaron to do, you know, we like to show videos of folks. You've seen some of them before, and this is a encore of some more work that's being done at Parks and Rec. So if you could roll the tape, Aaron, that'd be great.
Okay, so now we're at the Parks and Rec department. We're getting ready for spring. Part of that is getting the pool cleaned and ready. This year, because of the pandemic, we were unable to certify any lifeguards last year. So this year I've got to recertify every guard that's going to be working here. So getting the pool cleared out a little early this year just to have time to get everybody certified. Doing that, takes a lot of vacuuming, and then we're going to be asked to wash it next week. Here at the Parks and Rec, soccer has now been able to get started in a limited capacity. So we have been out mowing the grass right now, getting the fields ready for everybody to be using. We also have our pickleball going crazy. We're pretty busy trying to get everything ready so we can get back to normal.
All right.
Well, you can see there that Lynn has got his environmental green going on there. And so I wanted to mention one more thing before I turn it back to the mayor, is that I asked Lori to give me a kind of a rough estimate of the inventory of lots that we have left in Corrales for building purposes. And in Corrales directly, and we're looking at 1 acre lots here, there's about 150 lots left, with another 115 or so in the far northwest sector. So a total of around 250 to 260. And there are a few large 20-acre parcels that are still undivided that certainly also could be subdivided in the future. But I mention this to you because, as you know, we're experiencing pretty substantial growth as far as building new homes in the village. And a lot of these, I know in conversations that Lori's had with various developers and stuff, some of them are not completely informed about the importance of 1 acre lots that the council has and the Planning and Zoning Commission has voted on several times. But there are a number of lots left out there, and I'm sure some of these decisions might be headed your way in the future, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. And so if there's any questions, Mayor, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Certainly. Any questions, Councilor Murray?
Yeah, just one, some time ago, I asked about the possibility of maybe getting a dumpster for glass, since Albuquerque's removed the Cottonwood location. You have to clear up into Taylor Ranch to dispose of glassware and so forth. Is there any chance that Roadrunner might entertain putting a bin down here someplace?
I'll ask him. I'll ask him.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions for Administrator Curry before we move on to the Councilors Forum? All right, seeing none, we're going to move. Thank you very much, Administrator. We're going to move into the Councilors Forum. This section is for information purposes only, not for discussion and debate, to inform the governing body of an issue concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. Any councilors have something they would like to share with the forum tonight? All right, I do. There you are, Councilor Parker. Thank you. There's that arm. Thank you very much.
Mayor, councilors, something that was pointed out to me in an email recently, and it kind of got me thinking that I was noticing it as well, especially with all the mask use that's going on there, is that it seems like debris and trash alongside the roads and alongside the ditches is kind of on an uptick. And I'm just wondering if we can think of ways to maybe help try to mediate this. I know some people are hesitant to pick up strangers' trash right now, but maybe those hesitations will go away and the problem will go away. But I just wanted to call attention to that for get everyone's mind thinking about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. Yes, Councilor Burkett.
I'll just briefly mention Corrales Main Street. The executive director, Sandy Rasmussen, is going to be stepping down in the future after many years of great service for the village, and they are looking for a replacement now. There's an ad in the Corrales comment. I just wanted to put that on people's radar. If somebody knows someone with some economic development, marketing, public policy background that wants to participate in seeing the village grow, that position is posted as we speak, and they're looking for candidates.
Thank you very much, Councilor Burkett. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to move on to the Corrales Forum. This section is for information purposes only, not for discussion and debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. There's a 3-minute time limit. Aaron, do we have somebody?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have Mr. Kurt Flora who would like to speak.
Certainly. Go ahead, Mr. Flora.
Yes, it's funny, Mr. Curry just brought up that 20-acre lots and all that being subdivided and all that. They're trying to get subdivided or whatever they want to do there. When we've been trying for the last 3 years to subdivide our 6-acre lot here. But anyhow, In the council meeting on April 13th, 2021, I informed you that I would be exposing the village's corruption. On April 23rd and 26th, we had a meeting with village attorney Randy Audio and village administrator Ron Curry. We tried to explain what has happened in the short time and frame we were given since we were only given a short amount of time, we didn't have the chance to give all the details of what happened or present the recorded information we do have or explain other violations. In this meeting, we felt that Mr. Audio understood the violations we brought to his attention, and Mr. Curry also. Apparently, the village is still denying the resignation letter that was sent to the mayor by Candace Cordova. We've been requesting that for a couple of years now.
Mr. Flora?
Yes.
This is Randy Audio. I just wanted to bring up the fact that my understanding was we were in settlement negotiations, and that is, as your attorney had pointed out, confidential. And so I would prefer discontinuing those discussions. It's obviously your option, but that was my understanding of the situation.
Well, my understanding is that, we would have till tomorrow. I guess I would give you till tomorrow to, give us some kind of an answer to that discussions.
Exactly. That's why I was I'm just a little surprised that you were once again bringing it up in public comment when we were still working on it. So you are obviously free to do as you choose. It is something that I will talk to Mr. Spangler about.
That's fine. All right. We can do that. I will just not speak at the moment, and we'll continue with the meeting. We were asked that, one thing I'd like to bring up is, about the ditch out front, when the gentleman stated that, I will take comments at the end of that. And then again, as you see, as happened in every meeting that we've been to, we were denied speaking again on anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Flora. All right, we're going to move into the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. The one item on this is approval of minutes for the April 27th, 2021 regular council meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I'm going to take a voice call vote. Thank you very much. Councilor Waldman?
Mayor Roque?
Yes.
Just a point of order on there. I wasn't at the meeting, so I'll have to recuse myself, but what I did notice is that it listed me as being present at the meeting. So if we could just do a friendly edit to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilor Parker. With that one edit, that's fine. And then I will, Councilor Waldman?
Actually, Mayor, there are a couple of words in the, if we're going through the minutes.
Okay, well, let's go and make those corrections. Certainly.
On line 54, there was a presentation by the group on Trucello Fields.
Yes.
And the beginning of that sentence says non-conspired schools network. I'm not sure what the proper word was, but I don't think it's conspired on that one. And secondly, line 308, it talked about a medial amount of funds. I think it probably meant minimal amount of funds.
Okay, I know, I see it, and I'm sure that the clerk sees it as well.
Okay, and that was it. Thank you very much.
All right, at this point, I think with those adjustments, I think we are still able to go ahead and approve these minutes with the corrections as pointed out by Councilor Parker and Councilor Waldman. So I believe there's a motion on the floor in a second. And so I think I will continue once again to the vote. Councilor Waldman?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Counselor Burkett,
Aye.
Counselor Lucero,
Aye.
Counselor Knight,
Aye.
and Counselor Parker will not be voting on this because he was not able to be in attendance. All right, we're now going to move on to new business. The first action item tonight is the first reading and discussion of proposed ordinance 2104 and ordinance amending definitions in chapter 18. And I'm going to first turn this over to Lori Stout, our Director of Planning and Zoning. Lori?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Certainly.
Councilors, you have in your packet a memo from me. You have the proposed ordinance changes and also a letter from the Planning and Zoning Commission endorsing those proposed changes. So these are proposed changes to some definitions in Village Code that will unequivocally define what is a dwelling unit and what is an accessory structure primarily. While other municipalities may allow secondary dwelling units in certain zones at least, they all have something we don't. They have municipal water and sewer systems. We are, as you know, all dependent on wells and septics except for that wastewater line along a portion of Corrales Road. So it's just not a good idea or safe from a public health standpoint to have higher density on our lots. And also we are a one dwelling unit per lot community, but that's not how it's playing out in real life. This now notorious 2 houses at 489 West Ella, that's not the first casita kerflaffle we've had here in the village. Since I've been here, there have been several. One was raging in 2017 when I started. Our office gets complaints pretty often, wondering why extra houses on a lot have been allowed. And really all I can tell them is because our ordinances define a house as having a kitchen with an oven. So a full separate house can be built. I don't believe that was the intent. Our building official has recently had to oversee removal of ovens from accessory buildings. So I would appreciate your consideration of these proposed changes and would stand for any questions you might have about them.
Counselors, do you have some questions here for Ms. Stout? Yes, Counselor Murray.
Thank you,
Madam
Mayor.
before
Lori,
I'm sorry,
under-
Counselor Murray, just real quick, would you like public comment before going to counselors, or would you like to do it after?
It probably, Counselor Murray, if it's all right with you, since we do have some public comment, why don't I allow that first? And
Sure.
then we can,
That's fine.
that's great. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yes, Mary LaGuercio, are you present with us this evening?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and council members, and mostly Lori Stout, for bringing to my attention this forum regarding the proposed ordinance 21-04, amending chapter 18. I agree with you in what it says. I am happy about the accessory structures. I would like, however, because we talk about loopholes and muddy waters. So if we were to have it say, right now your proposal says no full bath. I agree with that, but would like it to be amended to say no full bathroom consisting of, but not limited to, bathtub, showers, sink, or toilets. Close it up so that a builder or a homeowner doesn't try to skirt this issue again. No human occupation or habitation. I would like it to continue to say for any period of time, for any purpose at all. Because again, they will skirt around that as well. I know you just talked about the 489 property, and I appreciate that. My biggest concern with that property is the fact that it is 2 full-time residences. And there is, you know what I had sent to Corrales comment? When it talks about having no connections that are suitable for servicing a range or an oven. Do we consider a convection oven a appliance suitable for preparation of food? Anybody want to jump in there? I'm not getting anybody's response on that. Okay, that's fine. I think that answers that question. Pros and cons for casitas, accessory buildings that are being used right now. I would like to see anybody who is using an old barn, a garage, whatever, a workshop that it was permitted for and is using it for a rental property, short-term, long-term, second residence of any sort, to be shut down. That is not what they're permitted for. It is against our original intent for the one single family residence on a 1 acre piece of property. Randy, I have a question for you, if you would, for me. Restrictions, property restrictions versus ordinances regarding single family residences, dwellings on a 1 acre lot. How does the village feel about ordinances superseding existing residences? Are we?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
would you wish me to answer these questions at this point?
I would like you to take note of them, and I want this answer eventually to be done. I'm not sure it's a proper procedure right now. So let's, I want to thank Ms. LaGuercia for her comments, and we will try to respond to all of them. If that is the end of your comments, I'm going to go back to Councilor Murray. Councilor Murray? Thank you.
Mayor. Lori, I got a question for you back down on dwelling unit, and I wonder, after you write here, 1 or more rooms or single kitchen design as a unit for human occupancy, habitation by one family for living and sleeping purposes, but not including recreational vehicles, travel trailers, or converted buses, whether on wheels or on a permanent foundation. Why did you include RVs as an exclusion? Because it seems to me that if somebody wanted to have an Airbnb or lease out their home for a short-term rental, what would prevent them from moving into their RV or travel trailer, living on the premises at the same time that they're renting out their property?
Well, right now, living in an RV is not a permissive use. You can live in a house, a mobile home, a manufactured home. RVs are only called out in our code as something the on-site owner is allowed to store on their property. That was put in because our code enforcement officer requested it. We have people who do let people live in RVs, or they live in RVs, and that's all they have on their property. And it will help her in court if we specifically disallow living in an RV or a bus or whatever. That's not a house. So to call it out specifically will help her in court.
Was this something that Randy authorized or has blessed as well?
I have shown this all to our attorneys, yes.
It just, I know that maybe that might help you in court, but it sure seems like it's a ripe for abuse.
Thank you, Councilor Murray. do I have other questions from other counselors? Yes, Counselor Burkett.
Two questions. One is pool structures. If somebody wanted a restroom with a shower, it looks like that is excluded, even if the structure is nothing other than a restroom with a shower, because the shower is an excluding factor. Is that accurate?
I'm sorry, Counselor, are you saying the structure would only be a bathroom?
Yeah, if they built a standalone ancillary restroom adjacent to a pool that had a shower in it, it looks like that's not allowed because of the shower, correct?
You know, that's a good question. I don't see that we have to disallow that if that's all it is.
Right.
You know, our intent was to prevent, if somebody wants to have a bathroom or I should say a toilet or a sink in their barn or their studio or their office, that should be allowed. But we wanted to cut it off at, having a shower or a bath in this separate structure, because then that morphs into a home the next day. But you do bring up a good point. I personally, and our building official personally, if we saw literally a structure that only had a shower next to a pool, I don't think we would disallow that. We might ask the person requesting the permit to give us something in writing saying this is what it's for. That might solve the problem.
Okay. Second question, how are we defining detached? Is it two properties that have separate walls under the same roof line? Are those considered attached or detached?
If they're under the same roof line, and that's something we're probably going to try and work out in our Chapter 18 overhaul. This is really talking about two separate structures that aren't attached in any way. I think what I envision for the future is, in your memo, I did address the second kitchen that has, is in statute and how that could be, how that could happen. I envision sort of a second master suite that's attached to the house and quote, part of the house. If you can access the second kitchen and the other quote, living area for multi-generational housing through the front door of the main house, and it's under the same roof, I sort of envision that as being okay, as opposed to folks building a home and then 100 feet away building another home. But right now the home doesn't have an oven until they put it in. But that would disallow that. You've got a house, you've got one roof, and then you have things going on under that one roof.
Okay.
Thank you. I think I have a question from Counselor Parker. Please go ahead.
Mayor Roque, councilors, I'm having some heartburn about the whole idea of no full bathroom in there, because if someone builds a 2,000 3-bedroom house, 2,000 square foot 3-bedroom house, and then builds a studio out back, and if someone wants to live in it, that's part of the house, there's no kitchen in there. This is out of fear of water quality. What's the difference between that and someone building a 6,000 square foot house with 8 bedrooms, which is totally allowable in the village? So I don't see why we're drawing that line in the sand. If this is about having long-term rentals or casitas or multifamilies going in there, it just seems, preventing that bathroom in there is something that is not required. And then, if I remember correctly, when we were talking about this casitas and the moratorium, we were also looking at ways to make things comply better, and maybe using strategies for dealing with the wastewater effluent before it goes into the ground, in terms of finding ways for people to accomplish their needs with alternative construction that maybe not be mainstream, but in the end would, although 2 families would be living on the same lot, and I'm not saying let's have 2 families live there, this is an extreme example, that there are systems that you could have 2 people living on the same lot, and the contamination that they're putting into the ground from their bathrooms is less than a single family on there. And I don't see any of that happening with any of this. So anyway, that's all.
Any other questions from counselors for Ms. Stout? Yes, Counselor Murray.
Just one more. I would like to have Lori look at convection ovens and see what, are we talking, is it considered an appliance? Is it something you can hand carry? Is it something that is installed and not movable? So I would like a little bit more definition on convection ovens, if you would, please.
Okay, Counselor, I will look into that. I think what we've been doing now is when our building official goes out there, is it a regular oven / range? And are there utility connections for a, what you would consider a regular oven / range? And yeah, there are all these other alternatives out there that kind of allow people to turn it into a kitchen anyway. We haven't drawn the line in the ordinances right now. It's basically being very clear, just an oven / range or the utility suitable for connecting one without getting into any specifics.
Mayor, I have one more question for Randy. This is more procedural than anything. If we may wish to make amendments in the next, say, 2 council meetings, is that permissible, or do we need to make amendments now before we publish this?
So Counselor, the good question. So next meeting, we would have an introduction of the ordinance for publication. So there could be amendments made prior to publication. The second opportunity would be if there are amendments at the night of the hearing for approval of the ordinance, which would be the final hearing. And you can make amendments as long as they don't substantially change the substance of the ordinance, where they're introducing an entirely different section or a brand new idea. If you're just making changes that are amendments versus new initiatives, that is allowable. You can't do new initiatives without publishing again.
Does that answer your question? Yes, thank you. Do we have any other questions for Lori, counselors, for Lori or for our counsel, Randy Audio? All right, this is, a first reading. It's an attempt for you to see this, chew on it, talk to your constituents, call in to Lori and Randy and see what we want to get to in the next meeting. So if there is nothing else, we will move on to item number 2, which is the hearing of appeal to the governing body of the Site Development Plan 2102 and Technologies. As with the first appeal, I am going to recuse myself because I am within 350 feet of this. And so Mayor Pro Tem Kevin Lucero will be handling this, and take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. We are, like the Mayor said, we are now moving on to item number 2 under new business, the hearing of appeal to the governing body of Site Development Plan 20-02 Dendro Technologies. My name is Kevin Lucero. I am the Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Roque has recused herself from this hearing as she is one of the neighbors within 300 feet of the property in question, and she knows both the appellant and the appellee. That means I will be functioning as the presiding officer of this hearing. The hearing today is a quasi-judicial hearing, and the decisions will be made by the members of the governing body. I'm going to conduct another roll call for the record. Councilor Parker.
Here.
Councilor Knight.
Here.
Councilor Burkett.
Here.
Councilor Murray.
Here.
Councilor Woolman.
Here.
And I, Kevin Lucero, Mayor Pro Tem, am present. Now I'm going to ask the appellant to please identify herself, Ms. Antoinette Roybal. Ms. Roybal?
My name is Vanessa De Niro. I'm her attorney. I do believe Ms. Roybal is on, so if she can introduce herself. I know her daughter is here, so Antoinette, are you there? You got to unmute. Maybe they are having technical difficulties, but I am her attorney. I did prepare the appeal for her, and I can speak on her behalf, or we can wait. Oh, here she comes.
Okay, just if she can identify herself for the record, just to make sure the record knows she's here.
Yeah.
Miss Roybal? I see you. I'm not hearing you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would just interject here that we do have confirmation that Ms. Roybal is present, and since she is being represented by her attorney, I would just identify her attorney as the representative and move along if that works for everyone.
Okay, if you can restate your name for the record, ma'am.
Vanessa De Niro.
Vanessa De Niro. Okay, thank you. Now, the appellee, Richard and Jacob Thaler, if you can identify yourself for the record.
I'm Richard Toller, also known as Rick.
Yeah.
And Jacob, I suppose, is here as well. Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about
That's all right. The scope of this appeal will be limited to the application for the site plan and approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission to allow the placement of a new building at 4404 Corrales Road, Corrales, New Mexico. If people go outside that scope, I will say that is irrelevant. That goes for both parties as well as counselors, unless it is really related to the application for this site plan and the P&Z decision approving it. We are recording this meeting tonight so that a complete, clear record can be created of everything being said. However, please remember that we cannot create an accurate record with people talking over one another. So I am going to be strict about people talking over one another. If people start to talk over each other, I will stop them so we can get a clean record. The council will have the opportunity to ask questions. Council, if you have any questions, please just get my attention so that I can make sure that I see you, recognize you, let you speak. Again, this is for the record and so that we get those questions and answers down. The questions should be focused on clarifying the record or the testimony given and should not include new information or evidence being offered by a counselor through asking the question. I'm going to assume that everyone's demeanor is going to be appropriate and there will not be any badgering or argumentation of witnesses. I will call on people on that as well. Evidence in this hearing is made up of everything in the record from the Planning and Zoning Department, the P&Z hearing, and what is introduced for the first time here tonight. Evidence includes testimony and exhibits. If either party has exhibits to present that is not in the packet, please email them to Aaron, and I'm gonna recite the email address, but the village clerk will put it in the chat for reference. It's agullin@corrales-nm.org, so that they may be placed on the screen for viewing. Before I give an outline of the specific process for this hearing, Mr. Audio, the village attorney, will give us a brief reminder on how we, as hearing officers, conduct a quasi-judicial hearing. Mr. Audio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, councilors and parties and members of the public. This is a unusual situation for members of the council because all of you are legislators and you normally in everyday practice listen to your constituents, their concerns, and bring them up in the meeting. You are acting tonight as quasi-judicial officers, which means you, as Mayor Roque did, have a duty to recuse yourself if there is some reason that you cannot be fair and impartial in hearing this matter. The parties to this case have a right to due process because there are their property interests involved in this matter, and therefore you as judges have to guarantee that they receive that due process. If any of you counselors have had any ex parte communications with either of these parties, or if you believe you have another sort of conflict of interest that causes you to be not to be impartial, then please let the body know now, and there can be made a decision as to whether the conflict would disallow you from hearing the case. And with that, I will stand for any questions, and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you may proceed.
Mute.
Thank you, Mr. Audio. Are there any further questions for Mr. Audio right at this point? Okay. Now here is some general outline of how this hearing will run. We will have first a background statement from Planning and Zoning Administrator Lori Stout, just to give the government body an outline of the case, consisting of a review of the application, her review of what has happened before the P&Z. Each party will be limited to 20 minutes. The appellant may reserve part of their time for rebuttal after the presentation by the appellee. The parties may request more time if the matter being heard is extremely complicated and upon the request of the governing body agrees. The parties may present arguments or call witnesses, and the parties and any of their witnesses will be sworn in by the village clerk. The party can rely on the record of exhibits and witnesses from the P&Z hearing, or introduce new exhibits or call new witnesses. If there are exhibits, those again should be emailed to Aaron to put on the screen. You will need to explain what the exhibit is. The party should offer the exhibits into evidence, and if they are related to the case, they will be made part of the record by act of the mayor unless the objection to the evidence is raised by a counselor. There can be a cross-examination of a party witnesses by the other party. All cross-exam of witnesses should go through me. Counselors or I may have questions of the witnesses through witnesses limited to clarifying the evidence, the party's arguments, or the decision of the P&Z. No independent evidence should be offered by counselors or I will remind us if necessary. Okay, and this is pretty important. At the conclusion of the appellant's case, the appellee may make a presentation and call witnesses and introduce exhibits. Appellant can cross-examine the appellee's witnesses. If the appellant has reserved time, then the appellant will conclude their case. At the point that the mayor, at the end of the hearing, the mayor will close the hearing and the governing body will deliberate, and the village council may make a determination in open session or decide to deliberate in closed session as allowed by the Open Meetings Act. All decisions must be made in public. The governing body may grant the appeal and reverse the P&Z decision, deny the appeal and affirm the decision by the P&Z, modify the decision with the new findings, or remand the case back to P&Z if the record before the governing body is not sufficient to ensure the decision will be made in compliance with the village or other governing law. Once a decision is made, then there will be a direction to our attorney to prepare a written decision and findings of fact and conclusion of law supporting the governing body's decision based on the facts established in the record. The hearing date shall be set and the time for the vote on the form of decision as soon as practicable. After the approval of the final decision, the appeal will be concluded. Are there any questions on the format?
I have a question.
Mr. Nero.
Thank you. Yes, so it's a bit of a preliminary matter. I want to state for the record, and I don't know if it will make any difference, but I did contact the village of Corrales on Thursday to ask if I could submit exhibits and questions about procedure, because admittedly, I'm not familiar with the procedure here. And I never received a call back. I assumed I couldn't because I never received that phone call back. And then it wasn't until today that I learned that there were documents uploaded onto the village website with exhibits and other information to help in preparation for this hearing today. And so I do believe that we are starting out at disadvantage because we were not permitted to produce our evidence. And at the last hearing we were at, I did ask to introduce a recording of the of sound and noise and related to this matter, and I was opposed and objected to. So I wanted to do that, but along with photographs of the site. And so we didn't have an opportunity to do that. In addition to that, we did not have an opportunity to fully prepare by reading the response. I also requested whether or not, or inquired if a response was made to our appeal. We filed the appeal on April 6th, and over 30 days have passed and I never got a response regarding that. So I do feel like we are beginning here at a disadvantage. I will scramble to try to upload documents and send them to the person that needs them while we're at this hearing, but then I'm multitasking and not hearing the argument. So I am asking as a preliminary matter if this hearing could be continued to another date so that we could be fully prepared, even if that means tomorrow. And I realize that will put a lot of people you know, it's not convenient. So, and maybe it's not procedurally correct, but I am just asking that as a preliminary matter.
Thank you, Mr. Nero. In your concerns will be noted. Are you speaking of material that is beyond what you presented to the P&Z for their at that commission hearing? Are you talking about more material?
Yes, we never were permitted to provide material, but I did inquire as to whether or not exhibits could be sent along with the with or supplement the appeal. And I just never received an answer to that. And so we do have exhibits, like I said, a recording and photographs. And I will do my best to get them over to whomever I need to right now. But I also didn't have an opportunity to fully review every single document that was attached to other parties in this matter, or I think the commissioner's response and exhibits. So that's what I feel, and I believe to be the disadvantage and the problem here, just starting out with this hearing.
Okay. Like I said, I believe your concerns are noted. We do have all your information from the initial P&Z Commission meeting. We have your statements in our packet. We have them in our packet. I would rather not continue this for another date. Mr. Audio, could you chime in here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Ms. De Niro, who did you contact to find out if you could submit, or who did you attempt to contact if you find out if you could submit additional exhibits?
I contact the village, the phone number that we have been using to contact a gentleman there. I did have my assistant, who's not with me here right now because it's late. She's the one that made the phone call. She had also spoken with him previously. So it was a gentleman, and I don't know his name, so I apologize for that.
So, Ms. De Niro, I understand. So you wanted to introduce a recording at the previous hearing, and that was not, you said that it was objected to, but did the commission not allow, the Planning and Zoning Commission not allow that evidence?
Yes, it was objected to by the committee.
Ms. Stout, could you please give some clarification on any of these matters that the lawyer for the appellant has raised tonight in regard to introduction of exhibits and specifically the recording?
Yeah, with regard to the recording, it's my recollection that during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting itself, the request was made to play it, but it had not been introduced or given to us in time to be in the public packet or the materials that the commission receives prior to the commission meeting. So therefore, it was not allowed to be played during the meeting.
Can I make a comment on this, or is that allowed?
I think because we're talking about a continuance of the hearing tonight, that would be appropriate, sir.
The reason I believe, and we'd have to have somebody from Planning and Zoning confirm this, but the reason that the recording was not allowed was because it had nothing to do with the matter that P&Z was considering.
Nothing to do with it because of, just clarify for us, since the village council has not heard this case yet.
Okay, the hearing at the P&Z was to approve phase 2 of our site development plan, which is to build a wood shop, a woodworking shop on the property. And the objections to our building the woodworking shop framed, and I'm just telling you this from memory, and the objections that were framed to object to our building of our woodworking shop were objections to the previous P&Z meeting where we were granted phase 1 approval, and not to the building of our woodworking shop. And so the P&Z, although they did allow a lot of extraneous other stuff to be talked about, finally just said we're supposed to be focusing on this building and not on stuff that's already been adjudicated and appealed. And if there's a problem with the noise from the woodworking business, which this recording was purported to be a recording of, then that should be sent to the code enforcement officer, and it has nothing to do with the matter at hand. And on that basis, they moved forward and actually considered what was in front of them, which was, in my opinion, the right thing to do.
Mr. Toller is correct. That's exactly what happened. This most recent Planning and Zoning Commission meeting was to solely look at the new proposed 2,400 square foot building, and his recollections are absolutely correct.
Which had been on the phase one, but it had not been as clearly defined.
Thank you. Mr. Toller, what's your position on the appellant's request to continue the hearing for her stated reasons?
I think I am adamantly opposed to it. And I think it would be a yet another real disservice by the village if it was allowed.
Because it would further delay your
Yes.
project?
Yes.
Or what? Okay.
Yes, our project has already been delayed for 20 unnecessary days because the appellant chose to wait for exactly 20 days to the last minute to appeal, even though I requested that if she was going to appeal, I requested that she appeal sooner. And that then has caused us to be bumped from the April meeting, which might have been heard, into the May meeting. That's 2 months. And in the meantime, prices have gone up. We've lost our subcontractors. I think that any further delay in this would be absolutely wrong. Especially because
thank you.
I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying. We understand. Thank you. I just wanted to just get your position on the record on that request. Ms. Stout, how is for the council here, so that they understand it, how is the appeal process and the fact that exhibits can be introduced and so forth on appeal, how is that communicated to parties who are participating in the P&Z process?
Well, it's understood in a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that you may appeal to council and you have a certain number of days to do it. And they did. So this is their second appeal. So obviously they were well aware from the first appeal, the procedure, and contacted Aaron.
Thank you, Lori. Aaron, did you receive any communications from Ms. DeNaro's office?
I don't recall receiving any communications from them. I know that I have communicated a couple times with Antoinette herself about this. Typically when I'm served with the appeal, as it were, I go through the process. I explain, to the appellant that they're allowed to submit evidence, and I had relayed most of that to Antoinette, if not all of it. I even think I don't have the file right in front of me, sadly, but typically I just, we have a document that they would sign that says, I understand the process, and that, and again, Antoinette has been able to contact me. I sent out a couple reminder emails to Antoinette about the appeal, that sort of thing. So that's my recollection of this issue.
When did you become aware that she was represented by an attorney?
Just whenever she called me on, so obviously the letter itself is from her law firm. Whether she was being represented or not in the actual appeal didn't become aware to me, at least, until yesterday afternoon.
Her attorney filed the appeal, correct?
That's correct. Antoinette physically turned it in to me, but it was from her attorney.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, hearing all these statements, I'm a little concerned why the counsel for the appellant hadn't made written request if she did not understand that she could present exhibits tonight, that she never made such written request for the right to do so. And the first time we're hearing about it is at the hearing. It is up to the council to decide whether or not they would, under these circumstances, grant a continuance or not. It appears to me that there was adequate time. This was not a short amount of time that the appellant or the attorney for the appellant could have discovered that what the process is and made adequate inquiry as to whether they could introduce exhibits. The decision is up to the council. So
May I make a rebuttal to those statements?
absolutely.
Thank you. So I'd just like to state that I was not aware that exhibits were permitted at the prior hearing. I was hired very shortly before the hearing had been heard. So there was no communication with me at all until that hearing. My client has clearly, because I've asked her numerous times about whether or not evidence can be produced, and she stated she didn't know, nobody told her anything. And then at the hearing itself, when I tried to introduce evidence, I was opposed by the committee itself. So my perspective is that evidence is not permitted at these hearings or on appeal, because when we did ask on Thursday of last week, we left a message asking about procedure and about whether or not we could submit evidence. There was no response to that. And Antoinette was not, as far as she's told me, and she's here to speak for herself, so it's not hearsay, but she was not aware of whether or not evidence could be introduced. I'm not finished yet. And to continue, I was not aware, because there was no communication from the village to my office when the hearing was going to be set and whether or not responses were made. It wasn't until today, when I was looking for the Zoom meeting online and trying to find the link, because nobody put me on notice of the Zoom meeting today, I navigated the calendar and found the documents. And that's when I saw the exhibits. There was a lot of exhibits in that map and for this hearing. At the last hearing, there weren't exhibits that were introduced. So there was no indication anywhere that exhibits could be produced. And so I was also advised early on by my client that the hearing was actually going to be in June. And then at some point that changed on a very short notice. So a lot of this is short notice as well. And that is why there was no written request, because it wasn't until late in time that we heard of this hearing being set now. And we asked, and there was no call back. And so I was also very shocked to see a lot of exhibits and no communication with us. And immediately after I had made that request. So I do think, especially because you started out, sir, about due process, there is a lack of due process here, because we weren't permitted to fully prepare for this kind of hearing. The hearing of last time was not like how it is right now. So just to be clear, this is a much more formal, especially if there's going to be cross-examination. I didn't know that there would be cross-examination. And so I do not think that at least my party is prepared as of this time, especially prepared to take, to have to speak or to have to be cross-examined by either an attorney or someone else. I don't think she's prepared for that. We haven't prepared because we didn't know that would be applicable here.
Ms. De Niro, I understand your position. Ms. Stout or Mr. Julian, when was notice sent of this meeting to the parties?
Mr. Audio, can I explain the procedure for planning and zoning, and then Aaron can talk about procedure for this appeal? So prior to this certified letter legal notice that I send to all parties within 300 feet of a property prior to a planning and zoning commission hearing very specifically spells out the deadline date and time that our office must receive any items that they wish the commission to see. Ms. Roybal signed for her legal notice.
Thank you, Aaron. What about the notice for the appeal hearing?
Yes, by ordinance, we're required to post notice in the same way that the planning and zoning would post it. So this has been posted in 6 village locations for a minimum of 30 days. Legal notices were sent out to residents within 300 feet at least 15 days prior to the meeting. It has all of the information about the meeting, when agendas and packets are posted, how to join the meeting, my telephone number if there are any questions, what the appeal is for, and that is sent at least 15 days prior to the meeting. And so again, I don't have the file directly in front of me, but I do have the certified mailings, so the stamps showing when I mailed them, and then the return receipts for the people who have received that letter. And when Ms. Roybal came to pay for the certified mailing, she confirmed that she had received hers as well.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Ms. DeNiro. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll turn this back over to you, but I just wanted to clarify something for the council. Land use appeal hearings are something that is governed by New Mexico case law. And going way back into the 1970s, cases have established of what the rights of due process are in these hearings. And I'm not going to belabor everyone with that, but it is not what you are required to do in this hearing is established by courts in the state of New Mexico, not simply by the village. And so I do not think that there is any surprise to anyone that there is due process rules applying to their hearing tonight. And I would simply wish Mayor Pro Tem and Council to consider whether or not they think it's appropriate, given what was stated by the appellant, to grant a continuance, or what was made in response by the appellee and the statements by staff. And I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Audio, and thank you, Ms. DeNiro. I appreciate your concerns. I'm reluctant to grant a continuance for all the reasons, the process that we have followed, and we followed all procedures. Furthermore, it appears just by the nature of your material, I don't know if it has anything to do with a structure going up at that location. I believe, Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The only thing concerns me, and I'm not one to have additional meetings, but in the site development plan guidelines, I think it's under, let me get back up to what that section, under guidelines, it's under section 5, number E. It says the noise, glare, and odor effects of the proposed use of adjoining properties. If the Planning and Zoning Council Commission did not allow that evidence to be introduced, maybe we need to allow a continuance to be made so that they can submit their materials for that. I mean, this is up to the council how they want to do it, but it seems to me that maybe that was kind of overlooked in terms of the guidelines.
Well,
and
now, I believe the land use issue was already heard.
yes, but well,
this is merely for a site development plan.
Yes, this is part of the site development plan guidelines, and odor and noise is considered part of that for consideration. I'm just putting it out there that we might be wise to allow a continuance just because of that fact that it was not introduced at the Planning and Zoning Commission.
If I may, Councillor Murray, just to clarify, what I think that the standards apply to is what the potential sound or noxious odors would apply to is the proposed use, not
Exactly.
existing uses
Exactly.
that were already approved. So
Okay.
Ms. De Niro, could you clarify what the recording is of?
The recording is of the saw sawing, and also there is noise related to the kiln, but I don't currently have that. My client might have that as we speak. But it's directly related to the site development, because if we already have this saw noise that is extremely annoying and quite the nuisance for my client, then how much more will there be with a new building that's going to create more ruckus, especially with the type and nature of this type of work. So I think it is directly related, because if there already is noise and then there's going to be additional noise on top, I would like, my client would like the committee to hear what she's already dealing with as it is, much less with a new building with additional tools and machinery taking place.
Understood, Ms. De Niro. Sorry for the interruption again, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Can I just make one more statement, because this was not clarified? I filed the appeal on behalf of my client. Yes, she walked it in because of COVID and social distancing. It was just more convenient for her to do it. But I did not receive notice. I'm her counsel. She hired counsel because she doesn't understand how to navigate this committee, navigate the ordinances. And I did not receive notice on her behalf. And so whatever she's received, she clearly didn't understand how to navigate it and what to provide to me. And so I think there's a problem with the committee choosing not to provide notice to my office.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm going to check in with our clerk on that, okay? Thank you. Mr. Julian, did you mail notice to the attorney for the appellant?
No, Mr. Audio, I did not. Again, my assumption was that Antoinette was still the appellant, and therefore all notices and communications were done through Antoinette.
We can discuss the change that occurs when there is a legal representative that's entered an appearance on someone's behalf offline, Mr. Julian. Members of the board, that does concern me from a due process point of view, because once an entry of appearance has been filed, that does require that we also give notice to that attorney. I do think that is an issue, and I would suggest we get this matter rescheduled with sufficient notice in this, continue it from this hearing to a date specific, so we do not have to republish it, so that all parties are aware of that. But I think given this information that there wasn't notice sent to the attorney, that could cause some heartburn for a court later on. And I think this is probably the first time that Mr. Julian has had to deal with that specific question. So I think that given the circumstances, I'm sorry to the appellee for that, but I think it will take even more of his time if this matter is appealed up to district court and comes back because of a technical due process issue like that. So Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd recommend that we continue this to a date specific and let the parties know tonight what that is, if we can. If not, we'll have to renotice it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Audio, for all the clarification. In light of those concerns, I would be willing to grant the continuance if it's affording to the council. I believe it might be easier to set a date that's kind of amicable for everybody, and it doesn't have to be tonight if we can't.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we'll have to set it tonight unless otherwise it'll just have to be renoticed. We can renotice it. It's just that tonight, if we continue it to a date specific, all parties will have sufficient notice of that since they're all present here. And then we could probably get it done more quickly to address the concerns raised by the appellee. And Ms. De Niro and Ms. Roybal, to clarify, everything you've heard tonight, work with Ms. Stout and Mr. Julian on getting any exhibits you are requesting to have heard in time so that they can be included in the appeal packet. Those exhibits can be introduced at the upcoming hearing.
Thank you.
Mr. Audio, just a point of clarification. Are we bound by the 72-hour notice of council meeting in this case, or if possible, meeting today or I'm sorry, not today, tomorrow or Thursday? Is that a possibility given this circumstance?
You're muted, Mr. Audio. Mr. Audio, you're muted.
Some people are probably happy for that, Mayor Pro Tem. We do have to follow the special meeting notice provisions of 72-hour notice.
Aaron, what is that? What date does that give us?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Audio, but that would make Friday evening it just depends. It's, we would have Tuesday to Wednesday, Wednesday to Thursday, Thursday to Friday. But I don't know if that means, again, we're at nearly 8:30. That means we wouldn't be able to have the meeting until 8:30 in the evening. So would Monday the 17th be the earliest we could do this?
Yes, that's correct.
Do any counselors have a conflict at that date? Monday, the 24th, the 17th?
This Councilor Murray, I'm good.
Do we have a specific time?
What time would that be at on Monday?
Aaron?
We can do it at any time on Monday. I think it might behoove us to do it before our normal 6:30 time frame, if that's amicable to everyone, rather than starting later and running into the late evening. We can start earlier in the afternoon and run into the early evening. Four might be a good middle ground, possibly, if that works for council.
4 o'clock, Monday, May 17th?
That's correct. Unless there's any objection from council.
I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I'm sorry. I'm working. That isn't convenient for me, but I can try to get on my phone and do it. I just won't be in front of my computer.
I don't believe that'll be an issue. We will, as long as all councilors show up, have a quorum of the governing body present still. And if you are able to join via phone, that will probably be sufficient, given we're in a teleconference situation regardless.
So being on the phone would be okay. I mean, we've done that before for meetings when people were out of town and had to come on the phone. And
it will be fine, Counselor. You would just need to get, the parties would have to get any copies of exhibits that you haven't already seen in the packet to you by Friday, so that you could have them and review them, so you know what's being presented at the meeting.
Okay.
That would have to be part of your order, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. So hearing no other particular objections, then
Councilor Walker, I think he has his hand up.
I'm sorry, Councilor Parker, I'm sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilors, Mr. Audio, just a quick question. So we are going to extend or defer this until Monday. The appellant is able to provide further information into the packet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so then it was a determination in the previous hearing with the planning and zoning that certain information was not to be included in the hearing because it did not pertain to what the application was for. Is that also going to be the case this time around?
Councilor Parker, what will happen is the appellant can introduce any evidence she wishes to. It would be up to your decision to rule that it was irrelevant or not at the time of the hearing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
Mr. Nero.
Yes, I would also request or ask and inquire whether or not I could submit a reply brief to the response that was also filed. Is that allowed?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor De Niro, my recommendation would be that that would be appropriate. You'll just have to serve it on the opposing party.
Okay. And that would be directly to the opposing party, or does that go through the village?
Well, the whole thing will have to be sent to the village to be made part of the packet, but I would go ahead and send a copy of it directly to the appellant so they can get it more quickly, so they can prepare.
What are we talking about?
She's going to reply to your response to the appeal.
I didn't make a response.
Ms. De Niro, what are you referring to then?
Again, I didn't have an opportunity to fully read the packet, but what I saw were letters from Mr. Teller and other exhibits and documentation, which I assumed was a response.
That's
One sec,
one at a time, please. One at a time.
Yeah.
And that concludes my answer. So I was under the presumption I haven't had an opportunity to fully read it. They may have been documents by Mr. Teller by committee members that were exhibits to their response. There's a large packet of documents. And so, I have to parse through them. And that raises another question. If Mr. Teller didn't respond, but the committee members did, including the ordinance enforcement officer, may I respond to any members that did file a response?
Ms. De Niro, if I may, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Ms. De Niro, their only response would have been from the appellee. You may argue anything you wish at the hearing. If you wish to submit a legal brief along with your exhibits, you may do so. It's your choice and presented as part of your presentation to the hearing.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, without any objection, we will continue this matter until Monday, May 17th at 4 o'clock.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Audio, does this require a motion for continuance, or is this going to suffice for the record itself?
We would do, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Aaron, we would go ahead and do a motion and get a vote on continuing it to that date specific, with the direction that parties get any additional documents or exhibits to the village by Friday so that they can be added to the packet and exchange them to the other party.
Do I have a motion to continue this matter?
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Councilor Murray.
Councilor Murray.
I move that we grant a continuance for this meeting to continue on Monday, May 17th at 4 p.m. for the purpose of the appeal.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. We'll take a roll call vote. Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you. Then we will reconvene here Monday, May 17th at 4 o'clock. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And just to clarify, we'll continue on with our regular meeting.
Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on our agenda is number 5, discussion of the Local Election Act. I'm going to ask Randy Audio to just speak very briefly to the Local Elections Act and our, I think, his views on it and what it means to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As you'll recall, a month or so ago, we started discussing this Election Act and the nuanced issues of the different dates that municipalities may now have their local municipal elections on. The current practice by board decision has been to continue with the regular local election, municipal election day in March of each, let's see, I want to get this right, even numbered years.
Correct.
And and that was the decision of the village. If we wanted to opt in to the regular local election day, the first Tuesday in November of odd numbered years, we would have to do so by June in order to accomplish that. Currently, there's been no push to do that, and we do not have to take any action as long as the governing body wants to stay with the elections being run on the regular municipal election day in March. So state law does not require any action on our part to continue that practice. So I would stand for any questions.
I think we also do have a member of the public who wanted to speak on this issue. Mr. Gasteyer, former Mayor Gasteyer, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. I think it was 4 years ago, I was making the rounds with the late Bill Fulgenetti, the president of the Municipal League, or chief executive of the Municipal League, when Senator Daniel Ivey Soto put this idea out front up in the legislature. I thought it was a good idea then, and I think it's an excellent idea now. And I hope that the council will pursue it. At the time, Randy Van Vleck, the general counsel of the Municipal League, thought that there might be a constitutional problem with shortening the terms of office of sitting councilors and mayors. Apparently that objection was overcome because Santa Fe and a large number of other municipalities have made the switch. In terms of voter participation, I think that it's a good idea to put all the nonpartisan offices in the state in the odd year November election cycle. It certainly will improve school board turnout. And then there are organizations like the Arroyo and Flood Control Authority, which make terribly important decisions, particularly in an area like ours, that would get a much higher profile with the public if you had this kind of an opportunity. A couple of years back, then our former village clerk said, "Oh, this would be far more expensive for the village." I don't think that's correct. I think overwhelmingly the costs would be picked up by the county clerk's office, which has a permanent staff. I think there are 3 people in case of Sandoval County, who are on the payroll year in and year out to conduct elections. They have all the information about our local council districting, and they have what they need to do it efficiently and inexpensively. for the village. So I think you'd be saving a good deal of money, and basically I think it's better for democracy. So thank you for your listening to my little pitch on it. I hope you do it.
Thank you very much. Do we have, I think the administration may want to weigh in a little bit on what they have looked into as far as costs and what we think the benefits or consequences of opting in might be. No? Yes, Councilor Murray.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Gasteyer, for your comments too. So my question is, do the bond issues also go with the shortened cycle then if we go to the odd year?
Yes, Councilor Murray, all municipal questions that would be appropriate for our regular ballot would be placed upon the odd year November regular local election day ballot.
Okay, and there
And
was some.
The biggest problem with that is the village will be down towards the bottom of the ballot. Potentially, it could be somewhere in the middle, and it's going to be a very long ballot because it'll be all these other races too. So while we may get greater turnout, the ballot may be more confusing because there's many more things than just municipal questions.
And I think one of the other questions was, I mean, Mr. Gasteyer may be correct that the Sandoval County will pick up most of the cost, but there's still some cost to the village. Is it correct?
Correct.
And we don't know what that is.
I think one of the things that Randy told me was that depending on the length of the ballot itself, we may have to pick up any costs of printing the ballot anyway, after a certain length on the ballot. And we may also, although now they're saying that our polling places would be protected, we probably would have one, and we may not be in charge of where that might be. That's one other potential concern. And I know as far as the costs go, I think that the costs that the clerk first mentioned are just, were way too high. And so it probably would cost, just the printing of the ballots and stuff is probably about $10,000. Is that, I think that's correct, Randy. I don't want to give a wrong number.
I can also speak to that a bit, which
Great.
is the original price quote I gave you. Our accounting system lumped several different, even though we only specified for 1 year, it had lumped together several different elections into that one. So that 60,000 I think I had quoted as or around there was way off the mark, and that was just because the accounting system had taken like anywhere from like 4 to 6 different elections and had lumped them all together, even though we tried to contain it to 1 year. So the mayor is absolutely correct. The actual cost we're looking at is probably about 10,000 in that range, probably 12 at the max is my understanding.
One of the things I was looking at is I went back and looked at the Sandoval County, their last election, and my God, the number of agencies that were on the ballot, it's really astounding. And I'm afraid that even with 3 full-time employees up at the county clerk's office, they're going to get overwhelmed with everything. So I'd rather just keep everything the way it is.
All right, Councilor Knight. Thank you, Councilor Murray. Councilor Knight?
Yeah, I love the idea of saving the village money, but it seems so less personal with being on a big ballot. And I think Corrales has always kind of known the people on the ballot and have understood the questions on the ballot. And I think we'd be losing something if we went with a huge ballot and went on with Sandoval County or other municipalities with that.
Thank you, Councilor Knight.
Yeah.
Thank you. I take it that you'd like to just kind of stay with the March even year for now.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Burkett, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Councilor Knight was saying as well. I agree with what Mr. Gasteyer said, that we will have a higher quantity of democracy. We'll have more people voting, but will any of them have any idea who we are or what the bond issues are? Are they going to be focused on bigger fish and they're just going to fill in the circle for whoever's listed first under each position? Because they've got some or they're just tired by the time they get to page 13 of the ballot.
I don't know. Do any other counselors want to weigh in at this time? This is a discussion item for tonight. Yes, Counselor Parker.
Counselor, you're muted.
Speaking with mute off probably helps what I'm trying to say come across better. I think an opportunity to have more people turn out is good, and I like to give the voters a little bit more credit, and that they will do their due diligence at the same rate as they do on any other election. So I think it's a good idea to get more people involved with it all. So.
And I don't know, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, Counselor Lucero, please.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a couple of comments about that. And granted, I respect everything that Mr. Gesteyer said. They're very, you know, I agree with most of it in the democracy, of course. But from what I understand and what I fear is we kind of throw ourselves at the mercy of the county clerk to put basically she's only going to owe us one early voting site here in Corrales, and that kind of concerns me. The congestion at the bottom of the ballot will concern me, especially if we have important bond questions that we need to pass. And also, and like Councilor Knight said, I think it's part of our identity here and part of our control. And I kind of like that. And they vote for a person and not just, you know, the box. So I'd be reluctant to change where we're at. And the last thing I want to say is, 3 years ago, and I mentioned this to you, Mayor, 3 years ago, when we went to the municipal league training, Dr. Van Gleck, if I didn't learn anything else in that training, I learned that if you have your elections in March, keep them in March. It's kind of that simple. So I don't know. I think I'd rather stay in March.
Well, I want to thank all of you for your comments, and we'll take a vote on it at the next meeting. And if you have any questions that come to you, please send them to Randy or Ron or Aaron, and we'll try to get them all answered, and then take a vote on the item next time. Thank you for your input, everyone.
Madam Mayor, if I can just butt in very briefly. My understanding, and it's just based off of the timing of everything, we probably want to come to some sort of consensus now. We don't necessarily have to vote on it. And especially if the consensus is to maintain control of our election, then we don't have to do anything. But if it is the will of the governing body to move forward with the Local Elections Act, we just timing wise, we need to publish and post at the next meeting.
Okay.
And
that's correct.
It may be
but
better
I'm looking at the consensus tonight, and I'm thinking that 5 members are really inclined to stay with March, and 1 is inclined to move. I don't know. We did not hear from Councilor Waldman, but everyone else seemed to be leaning towards staying with March.
I agree with staying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that the consensus then would be to remain as a March election cycle. And so in that case, you're correct, Aaron, we don't really need to do anything. It's only if everybody decided they really wish to plow in with the change to odd years that we would have to get that accomplished by June 30th. All right. Thank you. Then I think we're going to move on. At this point, the governing body is going to go into closed session pursuant to exceptions under NMSA 1978, section 1015H8, for the purpose of discussing the potential purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property or water rights by the public body. The closure requires the majority vote of a quorum of the governing body. So I do need a motion and a second to close the meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let me take the vote to close. Councilor Lucero?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Parker?
Aye.
Councilor Waldman?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Counselor Burkett.
Aye.
All right, the meeting is now closed, and I believe we will be put into a new room by the clerk, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm going to
Thank
work
you.
on that right now.
Thank you. Roll call vote to reopen the meeting. Counselor Lucero,
Aye.
Counselor Knight,
Aye.
Counselor Parker,
Aye.
Counselor Burkett,
Aye.
Counselor Murray,
Aye.
Counselor Waldman.
Aye.
All right, I'm now going to make a statement for the record that the matters discussed in the closed meeting were limited only to those matters specified in the motion for closure, and this statement will be approved as part of the minutes under section 10:15(1)(g), and there will be no actions taken this evening. So now, I know you're all excited, but we're getting down to item K, which is a confirmation of appointments. Alexander Price, you have his resume. He was recommended to be on the Bosque Advisory Commission, and he seems a worthy candidate with a background in biology. So I would like a motion to approve Mr. Price to join the Bosque Advisory Commission.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All right, let me take a vote on that. Counselor Waldman,
Aye.
Counselor Murray,
Aye.
Counselor Burkett,
Aye.
Counselor Lucero. Counselor Lucero?
He's frozen.
Frozen.
Okay. Counselor Knight,
Aye.
Counselor Parker,
Aye.
and then Kevin, if you can hear me, you can wave. No, all right. Counselor Lucero went away.
If you give me 1 second, he's calling and I can hold him up to the
Okay.
speaker.
Okay.
Hey, Kevin, are you there? Nope. No problem. I'm gonna put you on speaker very briefly. We're confirming the appointment and it's your turn to vote. So
Counselor Lucero?
Councilor Lucero, are you voting?
Yes.
Did
All
you
right.
hear that?
Yes, I did.
Great.
All right, thank you. So I think we have unanimous approval. We look forward to Mr. Price joining the Bosque Commission. I think we have some future agenda items. We know some of the things that are going to be coming up. We will see the bond ordinance, the procurement policy resolutions. We will, I think we'll probably have some action on perhaps one or more other things that we discussed tonight. And so we'll probably have plenty to do. And then I'll also have Ron try to double back with Roadrunner to see if we can get that bin for glass and get that, see if we could get that done. So if there are any other agenda items, yes, I'm sorry, Administrator Curry, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to remind everyone of the work study on Thursday, of course. And it's going to be, looks to be a hybrid meeting of sorts. There will be some of us and make your wishes known as to whether you're going to be in the council chambers or not. And then we'll try to make accommodations if you're not. We anticipate the meeting will be 2 hours, between an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And we'll go through the budget much like we did last year for, information purposes, questions, thoughts, and then we'll come out of the workshop and budget will end up, of course, on the meeting going forward so that you'll have a chance to get your licks in, but we want to make sure you have as much information as possible. If we don't have all the information for you on Thursday, then we'll get it for you before the next meeting, but it should be a very free-flowing meeting.
All right, I'm sure everyone's looking forward to that one. And I could entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, just really quickly, I know Councilor Waldman
Not yet,
also had his hand up. I'm just gonna throw 2 agenda items for the next meeting, just for the record. We are going to have another appeal hearing for a building permit coming up. I will coordinate with Randy to make sure all of our ducks are in a row for that one, to avoid any confusion. And then we also are going to be having a wholesale liquor license hearing, which will be coming up at the next meeting. So those are the two items I had for the next meeting.
And then Council Waldman?
It's just a very quick question. Ron, on Thursday, will there be a description of the meetings from last week, what the department heads are looking for in this budget, for specific new projects they have in mind?
Yes,
rather than the larger numbers.
There will be, the budgets are essentially flat with a little bit of an uptick, but you'll be plenty of paper for you to look at. And we'll be posting that up for you to see, but there will be, each department will have a set of paperwork and budgets that we'll go through and tell you how we got there. And the department heads, of course, will be there to discuss them in as much detail as you want to.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll tell them to bring pretty pictures, right? Anything else? All right, then I'm going to try again. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right.
Enthusiasm.
Good night. I think we made it. It's 9:30. So, at least we're still in the single digits.